Hey, what's up everyone? This is Kevin from Hapayu Gardening, and today we're going to talk about fungicides and pesticides for your pumpkin patch. Now here in the Philadelphia area, and specifically in my neighborhood where I live, there are 4 primary things that I battle against every season to keep my pumpkin patch healthy. And I'm going to talk to you today about some of the things that I use to deal with the pests and the mildew that I deal with. So let's start with fungicides. Now there are 2 primary things that I deal with here where I live. There is powdery mildew and there is blight, or specifically alternaria blight. Now how you distinguish the two is that with powdery mildew, it typically appears later in the season, at least where I live. Starting about late July, early August, really depends on how the summer is and how hot and humid it is. And what powdery mildew looks like is it actually looks like what it sounds like. It's this kind of like this fluffy white thing that you'll see on your leaves, and it appears as little spots appearing all over the top of your leaves. Now with powdery mildew, at first it looks harmless, but what happens is that as this mildew takes over the leaf, it will start killing off the leaf. Now powdery mildew also spreads like a wildfire, so once you see it on any of your plants, whether it's your pumpkins or your zucchini plants or your cucumbers, you want to start applying your fungicides right away. Now one of the best ways to slow down powdery mildew is to prevent getting your leaves wet, and if you are able to water your pumpkins directly on the mound rather than using an overhead sprinkler, you will significantly reduce the chances of powdery mildew taking over your entire patch. Now for powdery mildew, I actually use 2 different things. I use copper fungicide and I also use neem oil. The great thing about both of these is that these are both organic. So for any of those of you who are into organic gardening, these are definitely great options. And the other great thing about these 2 is that they work really well, at least in my own personal experience. Now these are both foliar sprays, so you're going to want to mix this up in your foliar spray. With a copper fungicide, you want to mix anywhere from half a milliliter to 2 milliliters for every gallon. And for the neem oil, you want to use about 2 tablespoons to 4 tablespoons for every gallon. You can also mix these together in the same sprayer at the same time and apply them together, which I have done, and I do that a lot to save time. With these sprays, you want to make sure you spray both the top of the leaves as well as the bottom of the leaves. Now even though you don't see it, the powdery mildew spores are already everywhere. So you want to basically try to cover as much of your patch, again, both the top of the leaves and the bottom of the leaves, as well as the stems and the base. Now with the copper fungicide, the first time you apply it, especially if you have an active case of powdery mildew, you want to apply this twice within the first 7 days. And then after that, I apply this about once a week. You also want to be really careful with copper fungicide. I believe this caused a lot of leaf burns the first time I used it because I used simply too much of it, and secondly, it was a very hot day. And if you look at my patch and some of my leaves, you're going to notice what looks like some kind of leaf disease. But that is in fact actually fungicide burn. Now I'm not sure whether it is from another particular spray that I was using in my entire backyard lawn or if this is copper fungicide, but I have read and heard that copper fungicide does burn. So you do want to make sure that you follow the instructions and don't use more than what is instructed. And you also want to make sure you spray either early in the morning or late in the afternoon, early evening. Now with neem oil, I mix about 2 to 4 tablespoons per gallon. And again, with this, I spray on the top of leaves, the bottom leaves. And the great thing about neem oil is it also deals with your pests as well too. So if you have squash borers or cucumber beetles, this helps with that too. Now here where I live, there is another specific leaf disease or problem that I deal with every single year, and it is a kind of blight. Specifically, it's alternaria blight. Now the alternaria blight here in my patch actually started pretty early. I've pretty much been dealing with this since about the 2nd or 3rd week after I started my patch. And I know it's because of the patch that I had here last summer. Now alternaria blight shows up on the edges of your leaves, and it starts yellowing and browning, and then it starts curling and crisping, and you're going to see that it starts taking over the entire leaf, and eventually that whole leaf will die off. Like powdery mildew, it spreads very quickly, and like powdery mildew, it spreads with water. So with myself, I noticed that it really started right with the leaves over the mound. And that's why I have quote-unquote bald pumpkin mounds right now, because most of the very first leaves that grew on the vines are pretty much already gone. Now the great thing about alternaria blight is that it can be treated and controlled very easily with copper fungicide. I really didn't have as much luck with it last year, treating exclusively with neem oil. However, I did find this year that by mixing copper fungicide and neem oil together and using it on my patch, I have managed to keep the alternaria blight controlled in a very limited area. And you can see that most of my patch is actually very, very healthy. Okay, so let's talk a little about pests now, specifically squash borers and cucumber beetles. These two pests can very easily devastate your patch. For any of those of you who have dealt with squash borers in the past, you know what kind of damage it can do. And for any of those of you who are grossed out by things like grubs, squash borers are not the kind of things you want to be dealing with. The last 2 seasons, I had a horrible time with squash borers. They are really bad here in the area where I live. Now here where I live, they start showing up in late June to early July, depending on how the weather plays out. And at first, they look very innocent. And you're just thinking, oh, it's just another insect flying around my patch. But within about 2 to 3 weeks later, you're going to start noticing some of your leaves wilting, and soon after that, your entire vine will just pretty much start dying off. It sucks a lot, especially if it happens after you already have some pumpkins on the vines. So this season I did a lot of homework, and I found 2 products that have been working really well for me. And you can see it is now early August and my patch is still thriving. I've had to pick out a couple of grubs so far, but nothing like last year, and not a single vine has been completely killed off yet by squash borers. Now the first thing I want to talk about is Spinosad. And Spinosad is a bacteria, and it basically starts attacking the squash borers as soon as they hatch and start trying to eat your stems. Now the brand of Spinosad that I use is Captain Jack's Dead Bug. This is the foliar spray, so again, you want to mix this with your sprayer, and you want to apply this to the top of your leaves, the bottom of your leaves, as well as the base of your stems where your leaves meet the main vine. That is where the squash borers will dig into your vine and start boring in and start killing off the vine. Now with Spinosad, and specifically with Captain Jack's Dead Bug, they do say do not use this any more than 6 times a season. So if you do your math, it really doesn't cover your entire pumpkin growing season. So what I did this season was mix it in with Bacillus thuringiensis, or known as BT. Now with Bacillus thuringiensis, again, this is also a bacteria, and this is also a foliar spray. Now I apply these on a weekly basis, alternating them. So one week I'll use the Spinosad, and next week I'll apply the BT. And with this approach, I was really able to successfully ward off most of the squash borers this season, though I did still have to dig out a couple of grubs this season. Now here where I live, we also have 2 rounds of squash borers. So the first round usually comes around late June, early July, and I've noticed that the second round starts coming in early to mid-August. So I'm going to continue this treatment until that I know that we're in the clear. This is what your vine will look like if you have a weaker vine, a smaller vine, and they have been attacked by squash vine borer. Now how do I know that? Well, first, it obviously does not look healthy. It looks like it is dying, and in fact it is dying, and that's because it is starving right now. And if you look down here, I actually originally picked out another squash vine borer down here earlier in the season, but it looks like I missed one. And what you're looking for are these open wounds, and specifically within these open wounds, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's this orange, what they call frass, that comes out of there. And that is a result of a grub that is inside of this vine eating away at it. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to get grubs out and how you can kill it and hopefully save your vine. Alright, so you're going to need 2 things. You're going to need a cutting blade and you're going to need a toothpick. And what I do is I take my blade, and the grub is going to be right in here somewhere. In fact, I'm going to guess, because of the whiteness, that's right in here. So you're going to take your blade, and don't be afraid of cutting the vine. You're going to cut along the length of the vine. Don't cut it across. You're obviously going to cut your vine right in half. And as you're going to take it, you're going to cut into the vine, just like that. And don't be afraid to cut all the way through either. It doesn't matter. And I like to take the blade and just pry it open gently. Alright, it's not down there. In fact, I see it. You're going to take your toothpick. We're actually going to go the other way. We're going to take this and we're going to cut it down this way. All right, it's crawling, it's on the move, it is going way in there. So I'm actually just gonna keep cutting down until you get it. This guy is very, very feisty. All right, right here, actually, there's one right here. You see this grub right here, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna take it and take your toothpick and just stab at it and pull it out. And that is what you're going for. Gross, right? Really gross. Now, once you think you have all the borers out, what you want to do is just take soil and just bury all of that up. And don't worry about it. The plant will recover itself and heal up those wounds. Now, this plant may not survive. It's looking in pretty bad shape right now. But as you can imagine, the earlier you get those grubs out, the better chances your plant will survive. Now let's talk a little about cucumber beetles. Now, depending on the type of cucumber beetle, they look a little bit like ladybugs. And again, you see them flying around, you think that, okay, it's another innocent bug flying around, not a big deal. And though they won't cause the kind of immediate damage that squash borers will cause, they will ultimately still hurt and impact your patch. They carry and spread diseases from patch to patch, and you may notice like random leaves on your patch that just randomly die off, and those are likely caused by cucumber beetles carrying around the bacteria and eating into leaves and ultimately killing off that leaf. Also, as your pumpkins start maturing and start turning orange, cucumber beetles are known to also bore and eat into those pumpkins, destroying a seasons-long hard work, creating these nasty little holes throughout the pumpkin. Now, to keep cucumber beetles off my pumpkins, I simply use neem oil. And as for killing cucumber beetles, there really isn't a good way to kill them. However, a lot of people set out traps. And this season, I'm using these yellow cup traps that you see all throughout my patch to try to capture as many cucumber beetles as possible. And I did make these myself, again using yellow solo cups that I purchased from Party City. You can also pick them up at Walmart. And I attach them to barbecue sticks or shish kebab sticks. And cucumber beetles, along with many other kind of insects, are attracted to the yellow. I applied this stuff called Tacky Trap all over the cups. And that's exactly what I'm looking to catch. Cucumber beetles right there. And the idea behind these traps is to capture these cucumber beetles so that they're not flying around your patch and spreading diseases. So there you go. Those are some of my techniques and what I do to deal with some of the pests and diseases within my pumpkin patch. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button to let me and others know that it was helpful. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more indoor and outdoor gardening videos. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, happy gardening.